Yo. Hey guys. So let me turn down the music a little bit. Right, I think that should be a bit better. Okay. I'm going to take that off repeat. Just checking a few things here. Also just allowing time for anybody to potentially roll into the chat. So, yeah, I'm just going to be sorting out a couple of things here again. Good to be back though, streaming again. Yeah, yesterday's stream went on way longer than it was intended to, and so I'm going to have to be keeping a bit more of like a watchful eye on the time today. I did mention last time that I was going to try and keep 2 hours to the maximum, and I went way over by almost like an hour. So I'm going to try and keep today to, yeah, definitely a maximum of 2 hours, considering that it's just after 4 p.m. UK time. So by the time it hits 2 hours, it'd be time for dinner anyway. So like I have a definite cutoff point. So I think I timed it strategically today, to be honest. Cool. I'm just checking all is good on the platforms and everything is coming through okay. Yep, we seem to be all good. Nice. As you can see, these are kind of the topics we're going to be going over today. I am just creating some little like slides just to help me to progress things along and keep track of what we're doing, because I often get like sidetracked with things, and sometimes just having those slides there help me to stay on track, to be honest. So I'm just going to quickly create some of those again. I think I did this in the last stream as well. So I will just very swiftly do that. Let's create a new thing here. I'm gonna just take that, new page. So yeah, we're gonna be looking at some of the designs today, doing a bit of designing, running through Figma, just basic Figma stuff that can help you get up and started, especially for, you know, perhaps you're a developer that, you know, you don't really know too much about design, but you'd like to kind of be able to create some simple designs and just get a project off the ground, you know, be able to quickly create a proof of concept, that kind of thing. I can just show you through some nice handy tools that you can use to help you, yeah, just create some fairly quick like mock-ups and stuff. I am by no means an expert when it comes to Figma or design tools, but I feel like I've got to a point where I'm comfortable enough to get something going, so I can happily share some tips that have helped me along the way. Okay. Okay. How are we doing for time? Yeah, apologies as well if my connection is going weird and dipping out. I'm just kind of keeping an eye on my network, and it seems to be dropping in and out. I'm going to quickly just see if there's anything I can do to kind of fix that. So do bear with me. Right, okay. So let's see what's going on here. I also need to sort out my Nightbot as well for my stream. It keeps like greeting the person as user, even though they obviously have a username. So I'll be looking into that at some point, but I don't want to take up too much time. So yeah, we'll try and get things going for a couple more minutes, maybe start yeah, in the next couple of minutes, we can get going. Right. Okey-doke. Hold on. Yeah, there seems to be something up with the variables. I got a feeling I know what it is. You know what? I think I'm using curly braces instead of parentheses. I think that's the problem. But I'm trying to get onto the docs and it's just like not having it. Okay, it doesn't like that either. Is the general docs working? Okay. Yeah, variables list. This is what we're looking for. User. I've got a feeling oh, damn. I think that might... I don't know, actually. Yep. That is definitely the problem. So, any developers that like come across this, you'll know the silly mistake I've just done using curly braces instead of parentheses when there's like a $sign before it. I'm referring to template literals there. So anyone that doesn't know, it's an ES6 feature which allows you to essentially write variables within your strings, which is useful for a number of reasons, but that's where I got caught out anyway. So I think if I do this now, let's submit that. Okay, this should work now. This should work. So we'll see how it goes. Anyway, let's jump over to Figma. I have got a lovely coffee here, very strong actually, just what I need to be honest. Yeah, it's a chill Sunday afternoon. I just feel like I need to wake up a bit more because we're designing today, which is fun, but I'm feeling a little bit tired, I have to be honest. Right, so welcome. Okie doke. Just got a couple of things to create. So what else have we got? Right, okay. All right. Just creating one or two more things. let's say like that, and cool. It's a nice beat. Still need to figure a way to display the stuff I'm playing. So obviously today's stream, we're looking at designs and stuff. For tomorrow's stream, we'll be actually, well, hopefully I say this, you know, depends on how today goes. The plan is to start setting up the repo tomorrow and start installing our dependencies and start thinking about how we're going to work the design into code, essentially. So how we're going to build out our theme, and you know, how we're going to be working with Chakra UI, integrating with Storybooks, starting to just think about these things, not necessarily going into depth with any of them yet, but the initial thing is getting the repo set up, and there's a couple of other, you know, small tasks to set up with the theme, like fonts, and there's some Next.js specific things we'll have to sort of figure out there. So that's the general plan, but it all depends on how today goes, because I do want to be quite thorough in going through the design just to kind of show my thinking. This will also help me when coming back to this in terms of sort of, you know, outlining why I did something, because as we all know, like even on your own project, it gets maybe a few months down the line and you come back to something, you're like, oh wait, why did I make that decision? And so it's just kind of talking through my thought process about certain things, and yeah, some of the key design decisions that are making up the style guide and things like that. So yeah, so I've given it a couple of minutes now. Yeah, so let's get in, just because I'm trying to be more conscious of time today. So yeah, let's jump into things, and we can start ticking off these things again. So let's do that. Just before we do that, I'm going to double check the platforms, make sure that everything's running okay on here. Cool. Yeah, we seem to be doing all right. Cool. Anyways, I'll oh, that's weird. Bear with me. Just want to make sure that we are getting stuff coming through on YouTube. Okay, it seems that YouTube is still good. It's still going strong. Just double check that. Yeah, I think we're doing all right. Maybe there was some downtime. Maybe there's some kind of lag. It's just telling me that that stream is finished, even though it hasn't. Just give me a moment, guys, just to figure out what is going on. Cool. Okay. So we're good there. What's happening here? I'm just figuring out something weird has happened with like either one of the streams or both of the streams. So what might end up happening is that chat messages might not be appearing up on that top right corner from all of the, it might just be coming from Twitch or maybe just from YouTube. That we'll have to figure out. If we have people join, that we'll just have to figure out. apologies for all this delay. For anyone watching this afterwards who just wants to kind of get into it, but I'm going to add chapters anyway. So if you haven't seen those yet, in the description, jump into the description, and I will add some chapters of where you can skip all of this stuff if you've been watching this far already. So yeah, there's that option for you. Okay. Let me quickly. Oh, the latency is on. Okay, I don't know what's going on, but I think we're okay. I'm just gonna have to like monitor both chats for now because I'm not sure what's coming through on what. And I just hope it doesn't affect the stream too much to do that. But obviously I don't want to miss any potential messages from people. That would not be cool. So stream is finished. So I feel like what has happened is YouTube's gone off and done its own stream. So I'm using Restream, by the way, if anyone's interested. Yeah, I feel like YouTube has gone off and potentially done its own thing. So I'm gonna just monitor both of them, and yeah, let's get into stuff. And I can see that is that the quality on? Yeah, that's fine. Cool. Okay. Again, apologies. I will be checking the chats as often as I can. So if I do end up missing anything or not responding quickly, apologies. I will try and sort of keep up with the chat if people end up getting in here. But yeah, let's get started with the slides and stuff, and so we can push on and look at some fun design stuff. So yeah, the welcome, hello, hi. So yeah, project overview recap. So this is just kind of outlining what happened in yesterday's stream. It's very, very long. If you were to go back and look through it, almost 3 hours long. What I'm going to do, I'm going to create a condensed version. So for anyone that's interested, in actually hearing about like what the project's about, why I did it, my aims for the project, like things I'm hoping to learn and improve on, and looking at the tooling as well in some more depth, then you can feel free to look at that. But I want to create a condensed version that kind of just goes and outlines the most important parts of it. So that will either just be editing the video itself and like cropping out, just hit my arm on the table really hard. It will either be cropping out the most important bits from the video, or just creating a new video, and just outlining those important parts. Either way, I'm going to aim to have this up either later today, so this evening at some point, or tomorrow. So do look out for that if you're interested in finding out more about the sort of overview of the project. And if you're viewing this after the stream, then I will have a link in the description pointing to that video, or if you're viewing it on YouTube in the playlist. Yeah, by the way, this is all YouTube because obviously you can have descriptions there. If you're viewing it in the playlist, then it should be the video above this one. So yeah, that's kind of what I'll just quickly recap and outline. So let me I'm just going to drag this screen away again. I'm just going to find the file where I can quickly do this. Lovely. That's what we want. No, that's not what I want. Yes, no, this is what I want. Sorry, I'm fighting with my... I've got to get rid of that. Okay. Yeah, Figma still confuses me sometimes, even though I've been using it for a while now. Cool. So yeah, I'm just gonna breeze through these. So yeah, about me. If you don't know who I am, hi, I'm Greg. I'm a self-taught front-end developer. I've been coding for just under a year now, sort of learning technologies like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and some JavaScript frameworks like React more recently, and also a little bit of Node.js as well. So recently I've just been building projects with React, trying to improve my React knowledge and general coding skills. And that was obviously part of the inspiration behind sort of building this project itself, like the actual portfolio project. I actually finished what I call version 1 of my portfolio last month, sort of early March, and ever since finishing it, I'd always had the idea to, kind of create a second version, like a version 2, where I essentially, build on whatever stack I'm using. So I was just using pure React for that one, and I wanted to use, I think from then I'd already known that I wanted to use kind of either Gatsby or Next.js for the next project, and I ended up going with Next.js. I mean, I suppose, there are a couple of features that maybe influenced my decision, but I think Gatsby's really good, and it's quite a common choice for portfolios. I think with Next.js, I was just really interested in the whole like file system, page routing, and the API routes and that kind of thing. I wanted to kind of delve into it a bit more, so I ended up choosing that. And so that's about me. In and outside of code, sort of my hobbies are I suppose anything to do with coding. I like to blog and read stuff about different sort of technologies and concepts to do with coding. So I like to blog and read. Outside of code, I write music, compose music, make beats, that kind of thing. Also enjoy doing a bit of motion design as well. So that's always fun. And just, generally reading if I can find the time to do so. Also enjoy getting out and playing a bit of football as well. That's, I didn't mention that one last time, but so that's kind of me. That's about me. I kind of mentioned about the project. The idea behind it is essentially to, build a second version of my portfolio. In terms of the actual inspiration for live streaming it and actually live documenting the whole thing, that was more of like a recent idea. I've been following a couple of people, a couple of live streamers, like Jesse Weigel and Noopcat or NoOpCat, to name a couple of them. I've been following those guys for a little while now, and seeing what they've been doing with their communities and how they've been building it out has been actually really inspiring. And it kind of gave me a bit of a push to just kind of go for it. So over the past few months, I've done like a series of like little test streams. So anyone in here might have seen those as well. Me just jumping on and just coding at these random intervals. But yeah, it was kind of just me getting a feel for the actual live coding experience and trying to just build that confidence up. So that was kind of the inspiration, was just to kind of go for it and have this live documented project. And it has a couple of added benefits, I feel, as well, in terms of like, when you're working on a project, there's so many times that you fix things, and I know often the advice is to write some documentation around it and these kind of things. But I'm not sure about everyone else. I can speak for myself here maybe, but I often find that sometimes, especially when I've got a tight deadline, I kind of forget to document things, and I'm constantly pushing forward to that like finish line or that deadline, whatever it is, and I don't end up documenting maybe like an important bug fix that I will likely face in the future. And so this is kind of like a nice way to have something documented, essentially, and live documented as well. And for me, I'm definitely much more of like a visual learner, so to have to see myself solving a solution from the point of where like it's not a problem, and then it becomes a problem, it becomes an issue, and then I solve it. It kind of just gives the whole thing greater context as well from that standpoint. I feel like it's also beneficial for if perhaps you're approaching employers and you might want to send some snippets of stuff you're working on. You can just go into all these like live documented sessions and sort of pick out how you solve this problem that relates to maybe their mission or the tech stack they use, or I feel like there's a lot of benefits that you can get from this, and so that all of these things are a big part of the reason why I just decided to make the jump and go for this. And to be honest with this, like, I don't really have much expectations in terms of, you know, having or building an audience quickly with it. I know it takes time. To be honest, my main focus is just the whole side of the live documenting, actually having what I'm working on live documented for me to come back to it and to hopefully share it with other people that might be dealing with similar issues that I've kind of gone through. But I want to also allow for, you know, the space for people to come in to these sessions, learn things, to contribute, and hopefully, you know, a bit further on down the line to build a community around this. I think it would be, you know, pretty cool. So that's just a bit about me and about the project. I'm not going to go too much into project aims and stuff now. I would say if you're interested in that, what I'll do is I will share in the description of this video, after the stream's over, I will share a link to my aims, which is just on a file in Notion, so you can check that out. And the same thing I will do with the project structure as well. So all of this stuff here, and like I said, I will make a short video where we'll go into depth with this anyway. So if you're interested, then you can check that out, and I will update people when that happens. And yeah, in terms of tooling, this is our array of tools. It's not all of them, but it's just the main ones I'm going to be using. So obviously HTML, CSS, JavaScript, they're all kind of implied if you're going to be using Next.js, but I thought I'd have them in there anyway, just to be explicit. I'm using Chakra UI as the component library. I'll be essentially building my own sort of kind of UI library, like design language, on top of Chakra, and we'll look at how I'm going to do that as the sessions go on. So we'll look at that in more and more depth. Using frame emotion just for some nice subtle transitions. Using Storybook to build components, to build reusable components, and to visually test things. It's got some nice integrations with Jest as well, so we can do some snapshot testing, that kind of thing. That's another area that I'm looking to get into, is testing as well. It should be cool. And in terms of design, InVision and Figma. InVision, not so much. That's more just for like a little bit of wireframing and stuff like that. Depending on how things go, we might look deeper into some of the different features that they have, because they have a lot of different products. And so, yeah, if we get the chance, we might look more into that. But for now, I'm just using their wireframing tool because I really like it. It's very, very fun and quick. And yeah, Figma is obviously what we're looking at today. It's going to be the main design tool for this project. So yeah, that's kind of it for design. And then we're using Git and GitHub for versioning control. And we'll be looking at, in particular, a kind of methodology that I really enjoy, which is called conventional commits. So some of you seeing this might already know what this is. If not, we'll look at that too. When we come to setting up the repo and that kind of stuff, I think that would probably be a good place to look at something like conventional commits. So we'll look at sort of that, and we'll be looking at pre-commit. So we're using Husky for a couple of things to do with our code formatting with Prettier. We'll be looking at that as well. And then project management wise, we are going to be using Notion. So I've obviously mentioned it. That's what we were looking at before with this main screen, wherever we are here. So yeah, that's kind of my main tooling. And again, if you want more info on that, then just check out that first session. I go into depth, or at least some depth, about all of them. Notion I haven't actually gone into full depth with, but we'll be kind of going over it throughout, so that's fine anyway. We'll be looking at this at various different points. So yeah, we don't need to go into depth. Design file tool, that will be in this one. Additional notes, we can just skip that, and we can skip all this stuff. But yeah, if you do want to sort of connect with me after this stream, if like, this is the first time you're like catching this and you're interested in the project or interested in what I do, feel free to connect with me. Best place would probably be Twitter. Feel free to drop me a DM, whether it's questions or anything, or you just want to say hi, like, go for it. That's cool. If you want to check out my projects or projects I've been a part of, check out my GitHub. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. And of course, for streaming and other bits of content, check out my Twitch and YouTube. So that is, yeah, kind of it for as far as the recap goes. That's kind of the stuff I delved into, obviously in a lot more detail. But yeah, we can sort of kick this off now. We're a bit far in, but that's fine. I'm just going to kind of try and move at like a nice steady pace with the rest of this so that we don't go over time. Because like I said, I'm trying to keep things limited. But we're doing good. We're all right for time. So I can tick that off. I can tick that off. So next, we'll do a little design file tour. And we'll essentially just be looking at, excuse me, a bit of wind today. We'll be looking at the design file and all of the different kind of pages that I've set up in it. So let's kind of jump into that right now. So here's our lovely design file. I'm just going to quickly check the chat. Give me one moment, guys. Just want to make sure all is good and nothing's crashed. Yeah, we're doing fine. And we're doing fine on Twitch also. Cool. We'd love to see it. Okay, nice one. Cool. Right. That coffee is good and it is strong, man. I tell you. It is strong. So I actually apologize. I meant to do this before the stream. It's very unorganized of me, actually. Let's figure out how we can best do this now. So I'm gonna have to move a couple of things around. Let's just make this a bit smaller so we can have a nice broad look at our design file. Right, I can't move that side. That's as far as that side will go in. So I need to move some things around actually because I meant to do this yesterday. Let's send that to our style guide. Okay. Cool. That'll do. And I just want to grab one more thing actually. So just bear with me. For anyone that's wondering what on earth is going on right now, it will be explained. So I will try and make this straightforward as possible. I've just forgotten what I'm looking for. Spacing. Oh, this is cool. Documentation. That's what I'm looking for. So this is just helpful. Is that what we're looking for? Probably. Yeah, let's roll with that. Cool. Okay, let's just drag these guys over. Right, so let's kick this off. Okay. So we're just gonna essentially just look through these. I'm gonna explain what each page is at a base level, and then we'll kind of go into some detail about everything a bit further on. Okay, so let's look at So firstly, we've got the style guide. We've got this style guide. Don't know why I should just be a bit more obvious with it. Just call it style guide. So the style guide is containing sort of the key design decisions around what will essentially be our kind of global kind of variables. Essentially, that's the way we can look at it. Like, these are what we will be translating into design tokens, which are essentially, you can think of them as almost like placeholders for values. So like, let's say for a color, you would give it a name. So instead of using like, say like a hex value of like your, let's say you've got a primary brand color, right, that you want to use across your site, of course, because, It keeps the brand, recognizable. And let's say that color's like this purple. It's a hex code of like 865CFF, because I think that's what this is. No, it's not. That was a different purple, but yeah. And then say that you wanted it to be sort of semantically meaningful, if that makes sense. You want the name to be semantic, so you don't want it to necessarily just be purple. I mean, you could have that, but let's say if you wanted to just put instead like primary brand color, right? You could have this name, and that name represents that value, and so that is the essential. It's essentially what like we mean when we talk about design tokens. So, and I'm gonna look for a definition to like clarify this, because there's other people that would definitely say it better than how I'm saying it. Just for clarity, but I can't find a quick. It's fine. But yeah, they're essentially placeholders for like values, essentially. So this is what this kind of file takes care of. It takes care of like our main sort of key design decisions, like color. So obviously color is important because it's going to be used across all of our components. And so this is obviously one of the initial decisions that need to be made. So we need to think about the color that we're going to be using in the app. So what I've got here is just primary, secondary, tertiary colors, neutrals. So the black and white tones and all of the colors in the middle that we can use for various different use cases. Got fonts and typography. So this is our font choices. I wanted to make this more extensive, but it's just basic for now, so we'll just leave it there until I get to a point where I might want to add some stuff to that might be helpful. It's just got some lorem ipsum text with the different sort of cases and stuff, but this is essentially the font we're going for. So Sora, I really like the look of it. And then obviously there's more on typography, so this is like heading sizes and stuff like that. Again, we could make this more explicit by having something maybe down the left side of each of these saying the like the font family, the font size and stuff like that. But for me right now, just because of time, I didn't want to kind of get into that. I wanted to just be able to deduct that from going into the text styles here and just looking at it here. And again, this might not make much sense. We'll come back to this shortly and look at it in a bit more detail, and I'll show you how I actually created these using like text styles and how we can make them like globally reusable across our design file. And so I mentioned before in the last video that we're going to be using Chakra UI. I actually found this very handy component library in Figma. I'm not even sure if it was made by the Chakra UI team. I'm not sure if it was actually directly made by them. It might have been, but like I hadn't seen anything about it. And then I just kind of thought one day, let me just give it a search and see if someone's made this. And then I found it and I was like, okay, this is cool. So they've got a bunch of really helpful. They have pretty much all of the components that are in the docs, and they've got this very nice like documentation as well. So it shows you how you can use each style, which is very helpful. And so I'm basing most, if not all of my sizes off of these essentially. So I mean, I don't think they differ. I think they're roughly, anyway, we can check that later, but that's kind of some textiles that we used there. So right, so let's look at also some spacing as well. This is we can potentially use their default spacing. For some reason it's like not it's not in order, but that's okay, that's fine. For some reason it's not in order, but these are kind of like the different so essentially in terms of design tokens, what this would look like is this would be the spacing that exists across all parts of the CSS that would obviously that regard spacing, like margin, your padding. Is anything I'm missing out? Yeah, I mean, those are the main two, right? Like margin and padding. This is how you're creating space in your UI. So instead of using like 16px or 8px, instead we refer to numbers, and this is a very, very common thing. I think most if not all design teams do this when they're creating design systems, is that you just have a number that you refer to. It just kind of makes the like markup obviously a lot more concise. And once you've got that system, you can just relate and refer back to it. But usually, like, they'll refer to like what is it, 4-point grid or like 8-point grid scale, something to do with scale. I'm gonna just get up a resource that we're going to be looking at anyway. That kind of makes this whole thing a lot easier, which is designsystems.com, and it's a great site. Is it Elliot Dahl that created it? I think. I'm not sure who actually creates or maintains it. Okay, I think it's... Okay, no, it's maintained by the Figma team. I think. Don't hold me to that. It might be... Yeah, no, it is. It is. It's maintained, I believe, by the Figma team, which is very cool. We'll look at that shortly. I'm not going to get sidetracked by that right now. So, anyway, I'm just taking these from Chakra because, like, I've used Chakra in quite a lot of my recent projects, and I'm quite comfortable with using these. They work for me, so I don't feel any need to change them. So I can just incorporate them. And this is the nice thing about Chakra, is that it offers, obviously, to an extent, like an opinionated library where, of course there are going to be opinions. That's the whole kind of point of the design system, is to have like a set of opinions that are, that are based and set around some design principles, etc., where you can then obviously reuse components across, different sites, projects, and so for obviously, if you're like using Chakra and then building something on top of that, it's very nice because it creates this foundational layer where, and I spoke about this in the last session, it creates this foundational layer where you can use the default Chakra things that you like and work for you, and then anything that you want to have a bit more of an opinion about, you can customize it, like so. And honestly, we'll build this and I'll show you how we build this. It really doesn't take much to get it to where you need it to be, like in terms of creating your own look to a certain extent, and then allowing certain things like spacing, just to use Chakra's one. It's honestly like a painless process. It's a really nice developer experience, and I'm a big fan of Chakra. So anyway, this is just kind of the style guide. It's not, I don't think it's everything maybe that could have been taken into account. I've been working on this probably for the last few weeks, and more recently I've been building components, so I haven't had much time to go back to the style guide and sort of look over like what else I could incorporate in terms of design tokens and stuff like that. There's still like motion and animation and sort of those kind of values that I need to think about in terms of how I want my animations to like look, in terms of subtlety, in terms of speed, and so that needs to be considered as well. But right now I just kind of want to like push on with things a bit and definitely come back to that. So let's look at the component library. So this will just be a quick overview of the components. We'll be coming back to look at how we can maybe look at how I create these buttons at some point later in this video. And I actually created this using Figma's variants feature, which, man, oh my gosh, I love this feature. Like, I'm not sure how long they've had it or it's been out, but I know that when I first used Figma, like a good 8 to 10 months ago, I'm pretty sure this feature was not there. Like, it's an amazing feature, and it just makes like yeah, it makes building a component that has different states so much easier. Like, and it's just so nice. And we'll like look at how I've used it. And the great thing as well, like that I really like, is that like Figma show you, like every new release they show you sort of in a very nice and sort of easy to understand way, how to use their new features. And so yeah, I was able to get up and running with it in like no time, which is really helpful, and it's really great when you get that from a product. So yeah, big shout out to the Figma team. They're doing some really great stuff. And these are just some cards that I've created. Don't know if I'd call them reusable components per se. They're obviously mostly going to be used in like one place, but they're obviously composed of different reusable components, like our buttons here. So this is actually a button, like one of the buttons that we created here. It's actually one of these small ones. So yeah, it's actually one of those buttons. And we've obviously got some different elements here which are like existing in these like flex boxes, but in Figma we call that auto layout. But they are essentially, in my mind, like I see them as flex boxes, because that's obviously how we do things in CSS. But for me, it's one of the most powerful features, if not the most powerful feature of Figma, is its auto layout system, just because of how well it maps to the mental model of using Flexbox. And I lay out pretty much most of my UI using Flexbox, obviously grid where it's necessary, but the majority is Flex. And yeah, auto layout maps to that so well that like as you're creating your auto layouts, you already know how you're going to structure it in terms of Flex, and this helps so much with building it, especially with Chakra, and we will obviously look at that. So it's going to be a fun time, I think. I'm just wondering, is my music too loud? I think we're alright. I don't know. It just feels louder than it did yesterday, but it's probably just me. So yeah, these are the components. I'm still yet to kind of do a bit more work on the inputs. We'll see. Maybe I'll end up adding a bit to this in the stream, so I can show you how I usually will go about creating a component. Or if you don't get time, I'll just kind of do that off screen. But I'll always update sort of on the things I've done away from the stream, just to keep people in the loop, and just just to like document my thinking around certain things. So these are the icons, and yeah, that's kind of where we've got to in terms of components. And there's probably a few more things that maybe I need to account for, but again, like right now, today my brain's a bit frazzled because I've just been trying to get so many things done for the stream, done for some other projects I'm working on, and yeah, it's just been one of those kind of days. I've been all over the place, so I can't even think about like what to do next for the design right now. But once I kind of chill out a bit and maybe drink some more coffee, like that will solve things, right? Then I think then after that I can sort of start to think more about what I want to add in terms of components. Because like one thing as well that I came across recently as well was obviously about the idea of creating reusable components. Like when you're creating a design system, and I know this is not a design system, but it's a kind of, I suppose, a good tip or a good word of advice when creating design systems essentially is only to create components that are going to be reused like at least more than a few times in your application. So for things like these cards, like I can't see them being used, like for this project card, I can't see that being used really much outside of the projects page, right? I might maybe have like a featured project on the homepage, but apart from that, I'm not really sure if that constitutes as, needing to be a reusable component that I build. Obviously I can still test it, that's fine, if there's some functionality we need to test there. But, instead, maybe we just allow it to be composed of reusable components. For example, the buttons, like I said, these will be used pretty much in most if not all pages in the on our application on our site. So we obviously know these will need to be reusable, and buttons always are. They are like an atomic element. So there was some thinking that I even had to do around that, but we'll look more into kind of thinking about composing the UI and stuff like that as we move along. But I don't want to spend too long on this, so we will jump over just to what I've done so far in terms of mockups. So obviously, the style guide was created first, and then obviously you can see that we have these sort of components that we've created, and in some instances we've incorporated some things in the style guide. There's a few things I need to add in here that I haven't in terms of color, which I'll come back to, as you could probably see here with this green success color. And so essentially the style guide gets done first, and then from this we start thinking about components. I kind of skipped a step. I jumped to the component library, but before that there's a little step, and I think I should swap that around maybe. And that's the playground. This is my playground. So this is where and I've kind of thought playground was probably a fitting name. This is where I'm messing around with ideas and trying things out, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work. Maybe leaving some comments about the places. You can see there's some comments here for me to come back to. And this is kind of a place where I just kind of just throw a bunch of ideas around, maybe some wacky ideas, maybe some ideas that will end up working, but that's what it is. It's kind of testing this out. Okay, that doesn't work, but that might work with that, so I'll try this. Okay, that's not working, but I might just change this little thing here, and then okay, that works, but then that doesn't. And it's working through it in that way, of just constantly testing things out. So that's what the little playground is for me. So for example, I just took what would essentially be some hero text. So this would appear on the homepage, and it would have sort of the H1 introducing myself. Hi, I'm Greg Ogden, and then it will have some text under, just a bit about what I do, just in a nutshell. And I thought this would be kind of a good thing to sort of test how well maybe two different fonts work together. And I thought, a great way to do that is to test a bold font against something regular or light, because that's usually what you'll have. Quite commonly is you'll have one font for heading styles, and then you'll have another font for body, and sometimes you'll have the same one, which I ended up going for. Funnily enough, this was actually my first choice initially. I was actually going to settle on Inter and Work Sans, and anyone that knows me knows that I'm a massive fan of pop-ins, and if I could have it my way, I would probably just use pop-ins, and maybe Work Sans or some kind of mono font. But no, I used it for the last project, and I told myself, no, I'm going to do things differently. I want to, I want a bit of a different look, and I want to kind of embrace change in this project. So I told myself no with pop-ins. And so the next thing up from pop-ins, or the next thing I saw that was similar enough, was Inter. And I was like, okay, that looks very nice at a bold level, so I'm going to go with Inter. And then I kind of let that simmer for a little while, and I decided maybe a couple of weeks after that decision to try some different things out. And that's when I kind of stumbled on Sora. I was just literally looking through fonts, and I came across Sora, and I was like, oh, this looks pretty cool. And so I tested it out. I created these other tests now from that. So I tested out Sora's body, because I do like the body font, so I thought, oh, that's really cool. And then I tested out, obviously, the heading, and I was like, I like the heading font. And even though Work Sans looks really nice in terms of body font, I was like, damn, I like both the heading and the body font of Sora. So I was like, I'll try Sora. And I was like, damn, that works. And I just felt really good about it. So kind of almost immediately made that decision. So yeah, I settled on that, and that's where we're at. So we're using Sora. And that's just sort of the good thing about playing around with these things, is that you kind of get to test out different things and really make an informed decision about things. You let things simmer for a while and see, if that's really the direction you want to go. And it's kind of the same things with all of like these kind of components I built. Like these were some different tests for like what the blog postcards might look like. So it's just got some, like it's got heading here. It's got like the amount of views that would be like pulled in from something like Google Analytics, I think. Don't hold me to that, I might be wrong, but I think it's right. And you know, you would have just some summary info about what that blog article is about. So yeah, and then, you know, like a little subscribe to my newsletter card. Again, you know, we've got a heading here, some summary text. We've got a nice input that's we've got a button that's flushed to that input, and in this we've got like a different style. So I was just testing out some different styles here, and these red circles, if you haven't guessed already, are like what I've gone with at the time, or like up, you know, to this day, this is what I kind of settled on. And there's some more tests here. So actually, yeah, as an update, I actually ended up going with this style. So obviously you see this first one and you see the second one, and I ended up going for this style purely based on like the input feedback. So the state, so whether we're in a success state or error state. So once like the person hits submit, you know, if they've put in a valid email and everything's all good, it's going to say subscribed, and then you're going to get a success message to say like, you know, you're subscribed or something. And you know, then with error, of course, you know, if you, I don't know, put in an email that doesn't exist, or if you're already subscribed, it's going to tell you like you're already subscribed, with this error thing. And you know, when I was looking at this, I kind of tried, because obviously palette wise it's going to be very hard to find an accessible you know, some accessible color contrast against this. And you know, the other alternative was to sort of have that under this, but I felt like it was too isolated from the input, and I just felt much better about having it directly under the input. And I actually quite like this look anyway, so that kind of swayed my decision. And that is like sort of part of, you know, inclusively thinking about accessibility at this point, and this is just one sort of example of how it's swayed my decision on things. I mean, perhaps, you know, I could have found like a really, really light green or really, really light red to display here, but really, like, you know, I just sort of feel that it's better to kind of go for this. This is, I always feel to go, you know, in the path of least resistance. So this felt less resistive for sure. And because, you know, with this, there would have been like a lot more checking for things, you know, really getting like a light palette to the point where like you might not even be able to tell the color. And I wanted to, you know, the user to at least be able to clearly tell that, you know, this is, you know, although we've got the message there, I think it's very helpful also to have that success color kind of, or error color in there. So, you know, that's, I'm still thinking about sort of whether I'm going to have this dark mode one as purple, or whether I will keep this secondary brown color and adhere to that kind of style. I don't know. But yeah, this is our little playground anyway, and this is just where I'm testing things out. So testing out how this might look in the blog post page, like testing out if we've got a component that has a longer heading, you know, and testing the responsiveness of the card. So, you know, you can see that here. This is a basic, concise description of what the article is about, plus some additional jargon to test this card's responsiveness. So just little like tests like these, you know, testing it on mobile screen sizes as well. You know, I've done the same here. It works quite nicely. And like, I don't want to embarrass myself here and get something that doesn't work. No, so yeah. So like, even with these, we've got these like responsive, or to an extent anyway, responsive cards, which is kind of fun. That's kind of cool, right? And we've also got, I believe, I'm going to say this is also responsive. Yeah, So we've also got that, which is like responsive, which is kind of cool. And maybe later on, if you get some time, I'll go into more about how I'm doing this and what I'm using in Figma to enable that. There's some very cool features that allow you to do things like this. But yeah, so that's it for the playground. Again, just testing out these components on different sizes, and then once I'm happy with them, I publish them as components. And I'm publishing them as components in Figma, but that doesn't mean that they're going to necessarily become like components that are going to be built in Storybook, if that makes sense, or like built as reusable components, essentially. So, this is more for the sake of essentially once I come to mocking up the UI, it's just for quicker working really in Figma. In terms of actually deciding how I'm going to compose this in the code, there might have to be a bit more sort of thinking around how I'm going to do that. But yeah, that's just an overview. I suppose actually it was a bit more of an in-depth look, but yeah, that's just a look at the playground page of our Figma file. And I'm just watching the network and it seems to be dropping, so apologies if we're getting some delays again, but we'll just keep going with things. Okay, so let's look at the component library. Well, actually no, we've just looked at the component library. I said, didn't I? I kind of did things the wrong way around, but that's fine. So once we're so let's say we're building out a page. Once we're happy with whatever components are going to end up on that page, what I'll usually do then is just start to think about blocking some stuff out. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to jump over to InVision to show you my process. And this isn't always my process, but sometimes I'll do this. So before I create this, depending on how informed I am about how it's going to look, I suppose, I might I might wireframe some stuff, I might not. So I will show you what I'm talking about. So sometimes I won't have an idea of how things are actually going to be laid out on a page. Sometimes I just have the idea okay, so I'm going to have this home page and it's going to have these features on it, or it's going to have this content on it, but I might not know what that's going to look like or how it's going to look. Whoa, okay. Sorry, bear with me. I need to now resize my browser. And let's get that like this. Lovely. Okay, here we go. So, yeah, this essentially was it's just a really nice wireframing tool called Freehand, which is an InVision product, and you can essentially just build out some nice. I mean, you can do a lot with this, but for me, I kind of use it just to wireframe things. Essentially, just kind of want to move things away from that thing. Okay. So what you've essentially got. Sorry, I find it hard to navigate this thing. Is it? Oh, what goes across? No, I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, so yeah, you can literally just draw out these nice squares and just really quickly, okay, let's grab a square and let me just show you guys on this one. So we've got this hero section, and let's say we've got an about section, and I want to say about me, and then we can just take some text. We can kind of just drop it. Oh. We can drop it. Okay, maybe not. Oh, look at that. I didn't know we can do this as well. So we can just resize this here. And we can grab this whole thing and kind of get it nicely in line there. So we can have about me. And maybe we want to have an image. So we can click on this. We can get some shapes. We can draw out a nice circle. And what I really like is... Oh, is it Control? Okay, Shift Control Z. So we've got that circle selected. I think it's Control. No, is it Shift? Yeah, Shift draws a perfect circle for you, but it's still got this kind of if you look closely there, it's got this really nice kind of like non-linear or like non-straight. I suppose it's not straight if it's a circle. It's kind of like slightly jagged edges, which is, I just feel like it gives it this more of like a drawing feel, and it's more like natural feel, actually. It's probably a better term. And so like, imagine this is our image. So we've got a bit of info about me, you know, my image. And then, you know, so we've got like, we want to have like a skill section. We can kind of add that there. You know, maybe it's not in line, so I can just move it a bit. And then let's say, okay, you know what? We want to create like a bunch of icons with my technologies. So, you know, you want to create, maybe have some icons like HTML. So this can represent all of those kind of things. I'm sure there's a way to like quickly duplicate this. Yeah. And you can just kind of like, oh, that's interesting. Look at that. I didn't mean to do that. I need to get better at moving these. Anyway, so let's just like imagine that we have this, right? Nice. Love how they're like not in line, but they don't need to be. Come on, this is like a wireframe, right? We're doing a little sketch. Can I hold Alt to duplicate? I can. And so we can just duplicate them. And now we're creating this kind of like grid, right? And, you know, it's just kind of nice for if we're trying to get an idea of like, you know, how we might build out certain things. And then we can take this into the mock-up and we can actually start fleshing things out. Or if we want, we can create a more of like a higher detailed wireframe and then do the mock-up. But usually by this point, I'm kind of comfortable to start jumping into mocking things up and blocking things out. So very cool stuff, to be honest, in my own opinion. So we're an hour and quarter, so just checking how we are for time, to be honest. So that's cool, yeah. And then usually once that's kind of done, I will then come into here and then, you know, start looking at how I'm going to build that out. So what I did this about maybe 2 weeks ago now, actually. This is just me just trying to get a sort of quick rough idea of how the homepage is looking. I'm really stumbling on my words today. I blame it on tiredness, lack of sleep maybe. But anyway, this is the homepage. So we've got our nav bar up here. We've got the menu icon. We've got my logo icon. We've got a dark mode, dark and light mode icons there. Like I said, we've got the H1 and we've got, you know, some text about me. We've got this get in touch button. So just a little call to action there. And then here we've got some featured stuff. So we've got featured like latest blog posts, and what I'm hoping to have like either in replacement of or additionally to this is like a featured projects component as well, which just takes the same card component that we'll create for our projects and just essentially display it on the homepage. So there's not really like much added complexity there. We're just sort of reusing some functionality or code right there. So yeah, it's kind of quite basic at the moment, but this is what I'm hoping to kind of build upon, and hopefully, you know, at some point, yeah, we can do that in this stream, hopefully. So yeah, this is the mock-up page anyway, and this is where I'm also doing prototypes. So for me, it kind of makes sense just to have them in one place because yeah, I kind of want, because obviously we'll need to be like linking to the different states depending on what it is. And I'll show you something very cool later on. Actually, I wasn't going to do this, but I will show you later on something very awesome. You probably maybe had an idea of what that will be just by looking at those things above. What else do I have? Well, I've also got design inspo. So this is going to be an ever-growing frame of just different things, of just some static ideas. I don't really know how to best sort of document this. I actually need to add some in quickly. I got some really nice ideas for like ways to expand a menu, and that might sound really boring to some people, but for me, like in the last portfolio project, I actually had a hard time figuring out how to make or create a menu that like was functional, that actually worked functionally and actually like was intuitive for a user to kind of use. What ended up happening was, and it was definitely to some extent to do with the way that I'd split up the like UI logic. So essentially what I had was a menu that was essentially opened up a modal. So on I think it was, what was it on? It was on mobiles and maybe tablets. On those screen sizes, you would have that menu icon, the one that we saw in the mock-up. You'd have that menu icon. When you click on it, it opens up this modal. And for mobiles at least, it covers the full screen. The issue was that when I was passing down this prop that was essentially supposed to act as like a closing thing for that modal, so to close that modal down, I was doing it programmatically so that when you click on like a page to navigate to, or a section to navigate to, because it was a one-page site that I had before. So you'd open up this menu, and I'll actually just show you, because there's no point in me explaining it. It probably doesn't make much sense, and I always forget to do this. So let me quickly just show you, because it's going to be much more easy to understand. What I'm going to do is, where's that? Okay, let's put it on here. So let's go to this and let's grab iPhone X. I don't know. Let's do that 100%. Okay, no, that's not what we're looking for. I never really get how we get this thing to work. That's not it either. Oh, there we go. All right, okay. So like, if you look here, right? So usually this covers the full screen, but I think just because it's on here, it doesn't do it. And we click to like the about section. So what I was initially trying to do was to have it close this modal once you know, that section was clicked on, and there was something where, you know, it wasn't reaching that, like, the point to kind of trigger that close of the modal. But if you close it manually, you still end up at the place. But like, that's not really intuitive for a user. You know, some people would expect, or most people would probably expect, that when they click on this, it would automatically close. So in terms of that, it wasn't the nicest user experience, and so I obviously already knew I wasn't going to have like a one-page thing, so there wouldn't be much for scrolling. Because if we were navigating to like a different route, of course, or like a different page, then of course like we wouldn't have that. And obviously we're going to be using pages in Next.js, so we won't have that problem inherently anyway. But I still, thought that the whole menu kind of UI layout needed a bit more thinking around it this time, because last time it was kind of just, I was thinking as I was going along. I wasn't necessarily thinking as I went along. I kind of wanted it to, to have it look like this. I wanted it to look like this, but I didn't really think about how it would work logically and how a user would actually navigate around this. So I'm kind of glad it happened, because it made me think about this more. And so I've started to gather ideas around this. That is what I'm trying to come back to after going off on a tangent there. So I collected a couple of bits of inspiration, which is somewhere here. I'm just trying to remember where. It's screenshots. It's a whole bunch of different screenshots. Yeah, that's it. So let's just post this here and post that there. And these are some really, really nice. What I might do, I won't do this now just for time, but what I'm going to do just to be super organized is actually try and organize these into different parts of the UI that you usually deal with, and try and separate them in that way, just so it's easier when we're coming back to look at this. It's kind of easier just to see where different parts of inspiration are, etc., etc. So I'll quickly just start off by looking at these bits. So this you know, sort of call to action thing. You know, get the business messenger today, with this like input and button, you know, to kind of sign up or whatever they want to get you to do. You know, for me, this was very nice and simple, and I thought, oh, this is like a nice, clean way to do things. So I was quite inspired by that. I put it on there, and then this is from Lee Robinson. He is a solutions architect at Vercel, the creators of Next.js, which is cool. Excuse me. And yeah, so I've actually taken a lot of inspiration from his site and just from him as a creator in general. You know, of sort of how he documents things, and yeah, I actually took his course, like Learn Next.js, which is a free course. So definitely check that out if you're interested in learning sort of the basics of Next.js. That did help me just to understand some of its features in greater depth. And yeah, so this was inspired by his blog, his like newsletter card. And so that's where you kind of see the inspiration in, like when I was messing with things in this playground here, it's kind of like, it kind of inspired these two different styles to an extent. And that's kind of what this design inspo file is for. So like, you know, you've got these, this is also from Lee Robinson's site. These are just his like projects. So that's those cards. But for me, like I kind of took inspiration for this in terms of the blog postcards. But yeah, I mean, it's cool. This I found really nice, and I'm kind of thinking about some ideas of having something like some image like this to go with the hero text, like just to have that nice visual content. I'm a big fan of that. So, but anyway, on to what I was talking about with the menu. So let me just check the chat, make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, we're good. So yeah, so I've been thinking about, you know, solutions to that menu issue I had before, and I wanted to make something that was a bit more kind of intuitive to use, or more straightforward. And so I came across these really cool menus. So I came across Vercel's one the other day, and essentially, let's just demo this, to be honest. Probably the more easier way to do it. So it's just to show you guys really like what it is. So as you can see there, they've got, you know, so the same kind of thing that I've got. I love the two line hamburger menus. I've always been a fan of that. So that's cool that they've got that as well. So yeah, you literally click on it and it opens up this menu. You know, and it's just very sort of, you know, simple but effective, essentially. You know, and you've got all the pages here, all of the routes. You can just go, you know, and you still got access to that sort of at every point in the site, which is nice. My guess is that they're using some sort of wrapper for all of these pages, and of course, like they've got this, like sort of nav bar that is like above all of the content, of course, so you can access it on every page, and every time you open that, it opens up the modal. You've always got access to that, and so yeah, that's a really nice solution that I saw. And the other one that I really like, and I don't know if I'm swayed, but like I'm massively fond of this. Let's have a look at this. Are we getting anywhere? We're not having it. Okay, my YouTube's gone. Google's gone weird. Okay, yeah, my network's like gone funny again. So that's obviously not the funnest thing. Let's do this, and then let's do that. Let's put it on 100% and hope that it behaves. I can't remember how to like. Oh, right. Okay, maybe. No. There's a way that like. Oh, I can't remember. or is it like fit to window? It definitely is fit to window. Okay, so we're just viewing this on a pixel. We can view this on anything. So I really like this menu, like how you have this kind of modal that pops out. But what I love about it is how they separate it into the different sections that you have. So you've got products, you've got use cases. You know, it's laid out very nicely, and you know, it's just very. And I love the colors. That's really nice. I haven't actually really sort of done like a. I haven't done a little tour of their site. I haven't actually sort of like viewed it and had a look through it before, or maybe this is like a redesign and I haven't seen it, because I'm sure I've looked at the site before and it didn't look, you know, this fun and colourful. But yeah, it's really nice, and I really like this menu. So I've also got some ideas around that, and as we go along, sort of building things out, I'm gonna sort of try and incorporate all of these cool designs and ideas and stuff, and come up with something that I, you know, feel works, or at least works better than my last solution on the first portfolio. So yeah, this is pretty much the entire design file. So we've got the style guide, we've got our playground, where we're obviously using certain parts of the style guide. So we're using, obviously for all of our text, we're using, obviously that's not all of them have the thingy on them, but most of them, to, you know, in some way are using our predefined text styles. We're using our colors that we set, which is why, you know, I was saying that's why the style guide kind of gets done first. So we have all of these key global tokens already set, and we just use them in creating our designs. And when I get something that I'm happy with from messing around and testing with things, that then gets moved over to this component library and kind of documented there and ready for use in our mockups. And so that's generally the kind of flow that I'm just trying to go with. And then obviously throughout the process, we're using our design inspo to build things out, test different kind of looks and feels, and sort of come to decisions on things, whilst also incorporating some design principles. And I mean, I don't know how much we'll kind of talk about design principles. Probably not in this one, just because I'm looking at time and I'm cautious of time. But you know, we will probably maybe look at that more in the next one. I'm going to do a bit of work behind the scenes as well, maybe later tonight, or at some point in the morning, just to do some work in terms of just documenting some of the design principles that I've been sort of working on. And it's just to have like a clear kind of outline as to what the, you know, design should follow, and this is incorporating accessibility, you know, baking that into it. And so some of the decisions will be influenced by, you know, thinking about how accessible things are and maybe needing to make adjustments in certain places. And so the way I'm thinking of doing it is potentially starting it in Notion and just having like just some small documentation, a couple of pages regarding different aspects of the design and what each one should sort of have. And one useful tool for this is the design system site that I was talking about. So let me get rid of the other two. And so, yeah, this is designsystems.com. Anyone that's interested in design systems or building UIs and looking for some like tips and I suppose like UI heuristics, essentially, this is a really good place to come to. You've got, I found in particular this getting started, these guides, I found them very, very useful for me actually, in terms of design thinking, in terms of seeing how like teams are actually working. You know, they say it's perspectives from the pros. So these are proven patterns and stuff like that. So you've got space, grids, and layouts. So thinking about you know your spacing and you know whether you're using sort of like 8, 16, 24 pixels for your margins and paddings, and and obviously it being dependent on certain bits of content or certain elements and how big they are, this kind of idea. And they really do go into, so they talk about spatial system, and about visual rhythm, or vertical rhythm, whatever you want to call it. And it's really insightful, and anyone that's interested, I honestly recommend just to check it out, because it's got some really useful like nuggets of information, even stuff around the differences between borders in code and in Figma, and how they operate differently, and some certain things to watch out for as well. So different types of grids that you can use, and the like sort of use cases, the different contexts in which you'd want to use them in, and interesting stuff. So you've got iconography as well. So this looks at the basics of creating icons, and when you should use colors, and just the whole like icon creation process using strokes and fills. It's very informative. And then you've also got typography, and you've got content strategy as well. So some really helpful guides there, if anyone's interested in learning more about that. But this is what I'll be sort of reading a bit more. I read this kind of thoroughly when I first found it. Like I mentioned before, I still am, but when I kind of first discovered design systems, I was really interested and curious, but also inspired actually by sort of how you create the system with all these different sort of ideas, and then you tie it into almost this centralized like kind of design language that you can then share across teams. You can use it to then build your design system, and end up with these reusable components that you can use across an entire organization, across different products. And I just found the idea of that really cool, and I was just very interested in seeing how people are making this work in organizations today. So that's a very good resource that you can use. I'm just going to quickly check on how things are. So we've done this. We haven't really spoken about that properly, so I'm just going to skip past that anyway. We kind of briefly talked about style guide things, and I don't know if we'll get into all of this, but Figma basics as well. I might leave for like a separate sort of maybe a tutorial or something separately. If people are interested, if you're seeing this and you're interested in this, do drop a comment, or feel free to like drop me a message. You can I've got my socials in the description, or on my Twitch account. If you're viewing this on Twitch, then you can find them on my account. Feel free to drop me a message if you would like to kind of learn more about sort of how I did this. But in terms of creating, maybe I can go through some of the tools that I used in terms of the style guide. So essentially what I've done with the style guide is just got my main brand colors. So as you'll notice from when I showed my version 1 portfolio, or anyone that's seen it before anyway, you'll know that I've used the same colors. So I'm using the same, so I've got primary, secondary, and then I added a tertiary. I'm still sort of thinking around whether it's going to be necessary to use this, but we'll see how we get on. But essentially what I wanted to do was to have one main color, and then sort of have a couple of shades. And so once I decided on this, and the tool I used was called, is it Smart Swatch Generator. So the tool, and I'm going to put this in the resources list, which I shall be sharing below here as well. Oh gosh, okay. So I used Smart Swatch, and this is just a really nice tool. You give it a color, it gives you a palette with a range of different shades, and it kind of helps you just to create like all of these different tones. And as you can see, like they've got different sort of hues. So Got this one that's slightly warmer. This one's a bit like kind of colder. This one's kind of in the middle. And personally, I like this one at the bottom. So I would go for something more like this. And this was inspired by Chakra UI because they used this. I know Vercel also have a similar thing where they've got all these different shades. I think you'll find this obviously with most design systems, but what I was talking about in particular with Chakra is how they have this naming system of going from 50 to 900. I actually didn't feel like it was necessary to have as many shades. So what I did was just, I think I stopped at like, I think I went from 700 to 100. So maybe like six, yeah, it was 6 colors. So 6 different shades. I believe was it 7 shades including these, which are obviously the default ones. So if we look here, this is where Figma keeps your global sort of variables, essentially. Like these are our design tokens, more or less. So we've got text styles, which we'll come on to in a second, but we can look at all these different text styles. So I've got default and we've got light and dark. And if you're wondering how like they're separated into, you know, all these different like kind of little folders or layers, we do this with the naming convention. And so essentially how we do this is, let's just get rid of that. So that's invisible right now, right? Let's say we want to add a fill color to this. So we'll click on this. So it's going to add the default fill color, which is C4, C4, C4. It always adds that. But we obviously want FC, FC, FC. Right. Okay, cool. And so if we wanted to, you know, document this color as part of our style guide because we want to use it throughout our designs, then what we do is that we hit this button here, which brings up this color styles menu, and we add it. So you press create style, and then you can put in a name for it, right? So I've obviously got, so if I just wanted it to be a color on its own, so let's just say white, right? And I can create style, and now we've got white. And now if we go in here, now we can see it's added to this color style. So what we did is we just click on that and it brings up the color styles again. But what's cool as well is that we can get rid of that. And then if we go back to the fill, press these 4 dots again, we can still see it's there. And so it's now available for us to select anywhere. And we can select this from anywhere. So we can go to our component library here. We can go, I don't know, to this random input thing. So we've got this color here. We can get rid of that. And then let's say we can select a fill again and the white is there. So it's usable across the entire, across our entire file. Throughout all these different pages, it's available there. And I'll show you about how you can sort of use this in different files as well, through publishing things. If we get time, if not, we'll do it another time. But yeah, there's a cool feature that allows you to do that as well. But yeah, so that's essentially what you can do with that. And if you want to get rid of a style, you just click on, so this brings up the edit style. So if you wanted, gosh, I need to publish these styles. Just bear with me. I'll come on to what this is. I feel like it's going to take a while, isn't it? Okay, we're all right. So if you wanted to change the color, you can. Let's say you wanted to go for like a slightly darker, so F8, F8, F8. Then you can change it to that. And now if we go back and set that white, it's slightly darker. We can go even darker. Like, okay, I'm just going to lift this up here. Like, let's go C9, C9, C9. That's going to be way darker. But like, you can do that. You can see it changes there. And it's going to change across every single element or component that's using it, which is really handy. And again, it's this idea, the same thing that React brings you with, you know, the way you're working with UI components is so you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. So, you know, let's get rid of this anyway. So if I want to delete this, you just right click it. You just click on that. You go over to this color styles menu, you right click it and just hit delete style, and it would just delete it there and then for you. And then if you already had if you had it on that color, it will then display whatever color was there before, which is cool. So that's how I created all of these. And then if you wanted to add it to like its own folder, which is obviously what you saw. We can use this cool naming system. So what I might do is let's just make it full white. And okay, I want to now add it. Am I going to use Tailwind? No, so I'm actually also, firstly, yeah, welcome, Dan Corrupt. Hope you're doing good. Yeah, I'm actually using Chakra UI, if you know it or have heard of it. Let's kind of search that up here. Let's get that in here. So I don't know if you know about Chakra, but yeah, it's definitely grown in popularity. I've been using it quite a lot recently for my projects. I'm a massive fan of it just because it helps you to build really quickly, and they focus a lot on like accessibility as well, which is obviously really helpful for, you know, especially when you're building out sort of small projects and you want to build things quickly. It kind of takes care of quite a few things for you. I haven't actually used Tailwind much, but I do know that there's definitely some similarities in terms of writing CSS when it comes to Chakra. So I know in terms of like the spacing system, you can kind of have that, so it's similar to how you have like numbers, because I know you kind of work with that in Tailwind, and they actually have a section on their site where they compare. So they compare sort of Chakra and Tailwind, and they sort of talk through maybe some similarities and differences. But for me, like seeing sort of people that use Tailwind, I feel that anyone that uses Tailwind will like Chakra, because for me that they aren't too far off in terms of comparison. I feel like the style is kind of to an extent fairly similar. Might be wrong, but yeah, let's have a look at the documentation. Yeah, I'm surprised I haven't actually used Tailwind before. Like I've always kind of had it on my mind, but since finding Chakra, I've kind of just used that for most things. But I'm definitely like open to trying out Tailwind as well, for sure. Yeah, so this looks really cool. Yeah, this is nice. I'll definitely check this out. Like I've been meaning to for like a while now. But in terms of like the actual having like really simple APIs, Chakra is quite similar in that sense. Like it's very easy to kind of compose different kind of components and stuff like that. So but for now, yeah, I'm going to be using Chakra for this project, but definitely open to looking into Tailwind for like future projects and stuff. But yeah, man, just to catch you up, I'm just running through some design files and just sort of looking at sort of my, like how I've kind of structured my style guide and components in Figma and like in the next session. So I'll be like live again tomorrow. We'll be looking at sets, like actually setting up my repo and then starting to look at maybe getting our design tokens into like our theme. So setting up all the colors and all these different like palettes and shades and stuff, get the font set up in our Next.js project, get like different headings and text styles, getting all of those things set up really. And yeah, that's kind of what I've been working on recently, is just trying to get this design file like ready to kind of ship off to code. And we're pretty much there in terms of the style guide itself. I was just running through sort of creating these global text styles that you see on the side here. So I've got like my palettes down the side, so like all of my primary, secondary, tertiary, like neutral tones as well, some accents like focus colors like success states, warning and error states, that kind of thing. Just quite simple stuff. And then also text styles as well, so text styles that are specific to like desktop screen sizes, and mobile screen sizes, and then also global ones as well. But we'll be looking at how we can actually have them specific to different sizes once we get into code, because Chakra has like a really nice way that you can work with like having responsive components. That's what I kind of call them, because instead of having like one space where you have like your media queries and then you have all that CSS there, it's like responsiveness is baked into each component, which personally I find it much easier to work that way, just because of like I have that concern in one place. So when I'm working on that component, I'm working on like everything to do with that component within its like style, essentially, or like inline style, if that makes sense. Because obviously usually with media queries, you have your CSS file, and usually if you've got like a different screen size, you'll have that CSS for that media query sort of down under that specific screen size. But with this, all of that responsiveness, you can like, you basically bake it into each sort of CSS attribute, if that makes sense. So if you want different margin values for your different screen sizes, you do that within that same component, which is essentially how we'll be working with things in Chakra. And again, there'll be more on that kind of hopefully in tomorrow's session if we get around to that. So I'm sort of getting ready to start running off fairly soon. We're about 10 minutes away from the 2-hour mark, so I'm just going to quickly look at anything else to consider. So yeah, we're just looking at sort of mainly how I'm doing things in Figma. So let's have a look at the component library. So I kind of mentioned this earlier about using variants to create multiple like states of like one component. So what's cool about this is that all of these like different instances here, they aren't separate like elements. This is all one element essentially. Learning React in lockdown. Is there any book you would recommend that has a project-based approach? Man, that's a good question. I'm just trying to think. I can't think of any book specifically, but in terms of, I mean, if you maybe like if you like to do like video courses and like kind of like YouTube courses and stuff like that, I would highly recommend the Net Ninja's tutorials. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him. So the Net Ninja, yeah, he has tutorials on almost anything you could think of regarding code, and his tutorials have helped me a lot. They're like, it's kind of nice because they're not too long in length, but he still goes kind of into detail about sort of each aspect. Kind of depends on how far along or like how early you are with React. If you're like at like a really early stage, then I would probably recommend taking his, like, he's got one course from a couple of years ago which I kind of took when I was quite early on in learning React, which I think is the React and Redux course, which I didn't think I finished. But in terms of books, I'm not too sure, if I'm being honest. I think for me, I took mostly like courses. So obviously I mentioned the Net Ninja. There's also, I'm not sure if you have, or if you know about Front End Masters, or if you have a subscription there, but I've had a subscription to that for a while, and I took Brian Holt's course on that. That was like the first kind of course I took in React, and that is really sort of what helped me to understand most of the concepts that I'm kind of using in React right now. I haven't been working with it long myself. I think I've been using React for about 6 months now, so I'm still pretty early on, or I suppose I consider myself quite early on in terms of React knowledge. But yeah, I would say take a look at the Net Ninjas tutorials if you haven't yet. In terms of books, actually, you know, I haven't actually read this book myself, but I think, I'm not sure if you know who Yves Porcello is and Alex Banks. So they're a couple. They're both developers, and they've written some like books together. I'm just trying to find, because they wrote a book on React, on learning React, and I obviously can't personally say, you know, I can't give feedback on that because I haven't read it, but that's supposed to be really good. And yeah, I'll just kind of share it here. Let me just share that. So they have this learning React, so like modern patterns for developing React apps. So that seems to be like a pretty good book if you're interested, or if that's kind of your preferred method of learning, then I would say to maybe check that out or keep looking around. Another one, actually, I say I didn't read any books on React. I lied. Let me bring that over to the side, and I'm gonna find. Actually, no. Sorry, bear with me. Opinionated. Gosh, I hate spelling this. Guide to React. So this isn't so much of like, it's not something I recommend if you were like early on with React, but if potentially after maybe after you take a course in React, or you're feeling a bit more comfortable in React, there's a developer, Sarah Vieira, and she has this book which is called The Opinionated Guide to React, which is, it's kind of like just a bunch of chapters around like how she personally uses React, but personally I think she has some good opinions on it, and like a lot of the stuff that she has like kind of mentioned in this book are definitely some ways of using it that I'm still using right now. So especially in terms of like file and folder structuring. Yeah, she really helped me to kind of clear my head about that, and now I've kind of got a way I'm working with things that we'll look at later on in this project. You know, if you're interested in following on, you know, I'll be kind of looking into kind of showing how I'm setting up folder and file structures and stuff like that. But yeah, this is a cool kind of book for if you wanted a bit of like guidance for using like React a specific way, or like she kind of just goes into like when, like, let's take state management for example. She kind of says, you know, if you need to do this in your application or do that, like then use this, or you know, don't use this if you don't need to, like that kind of thing. But in terms of like kind of learning React from the ground up, I would suggest maybe to check out that Yves Porcello and Alex Banks book. You might find some value in that. But in terms of video courses, I would say check out the Net Ninjas courses. I think he's got a few here. So he's got one that's React context and hooks. I didn't mean to go on to that. He's got like a more recent one, which is full modern React tutorial, and which I think might actually cover all the bases. So you could probably even be alright starting here. But as you can see, like the videos are quite, like they're quite nice and short. So yeah, check that out, and yes, and hopefully that can help you. Okay, where are we at? Yeah, a couple minutes really until we start rounding off. So so I've kind of run through the design file. So where was I at? I was just talking about variants. So I'm trying to think of like when, because I don't think we have enough time for me to go into more depth about this. But essentially, with Figma, you can create all these different components, and you can then like highlight all of them and combine them as variants, and it kind of takes the name of each one as these different states. and that probably doesn't make much sense. But what you can do with them, I'll show you what you can do with them. That's cool. So like if I go to my mockup over here, so this is just like some ideas that I created. Now what I'm going to do is get rid of this get in touch button. See ya. And what we can do, I'm going to come over to my asset library. I'm just going to click on this, and this shows me all of the styles that I've published. So I've made them public, and so these are reusable now in different projects, in different files. But let's say I want to just grab this button for a sec. I'm just going to put them there. Okay, let me just close that down now. So I've got this button that I created. This is a component that I'd created before. Right, and I'm just going to put this back into the UI. That's not in the right place. It needs to be here. So what I can do now, and this is the power of variants, right? So as you can see here, it's large, right? But let's say I wanted a medium one. So you can change the size. I can make it small. I can change it back large, but I can decide actually I want it to be a secondary type of button, and you get that secondary type. Check them out future. Yeah, I'd say give them a look. Yeah, sorry, check them out for sure. Yeah, especially those Net Ninja courses, they really help me out. And yeah, so this you know, is already starting to look like that, but obviously we need to change the color and stuff. So what we can do, we can just come down to the selection colors. So we can do it here. So with Figma, with like layers and stuff, because you can see obviously down this left side there's quite a lot of layers here, but what's cool is that, you know, you don't have to always dig all that way down. You can just look at the selection colors, but sometimes you have to be careful here, because sometimes it might say if there's one part that you still want to be dark, it might select that as well if you don't want that, so you have to be mindful. But let's say we want this whole thing to turn purple, then we just, instead of default dark, we will put it to this default, and then we have back what we had before, essentially. So that is just how quickly you can kind of create a button that is, you know, that yeah, it just fits your needs. But, you know, suppose actually, you know, we wanted to make this a bit smaller, we can make it a medium button, and then obviously we have to come back and kind of do all this stuff again. But, you know, we still get that nice look. So yeah, it's very useful having variants, because it just allows you just to like change all these things, you know, and it kind of remembers states when you, so like obviously we've got this state like this, it kind of remembers that state. So if we go from large to small and then back to large, it remembers the fact that you've changed some things around. So yeah, it's cool, and like as we go along kind of designing and building the features, I'll be definitely going into more depth on how I'm doing like each thing. So yeah, so that's that essentially. It's really funny, I actually made I need to remember where I'm at, because I haven't kind of, let's go all the way back. So we've kind of been through all these bits, components, variants we've looked at. We've kind of looked a bit about building a mockup. So yeah, so Dancraft, if you've got any questions, feel free to shoot them at me. Any questions about the project so far, even if it's like, what the hell are you building? You know, any questions. And just also a reminder, just for anyone who's catching this later on, anyone in the chat, just feel free to pop some questions in. You know, if you're curious about anything, or feel free to leave feedback and stuff as well. Always open to that. So let me just quickly tick off all of these last few bits. So obviously we haven't built the mock-up. You know, we will potentially look at doing that more. So yeah, next time, so tomorrow I am aiming to be streaming around 10-11 UK time. I'm gonna say, be on the safe side, I'm gonna say 10. So that's when I'm gonna, but I check out my Twitch profile if you want to sort of find out my stream schedule. I'll be updating that at some point this evening, so be sure to check it out. And yeah, what we'll be looking at next time is starting to set up the repo. I think because setting up the repo and all of that stuff shouldn't take too long. We'll be looking at sort of some of the things I'm installing and talking about how to set that stuff up, but that shouldn't take too long, to be honest. So I think what I might do is just kind of extend what we've been doing here today, and I'll probably maybe, yeah, I don't know, we'll see how we get on. I'll see how I get on. I might do some work on things tonight, and if I feel it's necessary, then we'll kind of look a bit more at designs tomorrow, and I'll go into more depth about sort of creating the mock-up and messing around with some different stuff. I said I was going to show you I said I was going to show you something cool, and I didn't. So let's look at this before we go. So yeah, apologies for anyone that feels this is a bit all over the place. I'm trying to kind of get into like a better flow in terms of structuring things, but I feel like as the videos, or as these sessions go on, you know, the kind of general flow, me keeping to time will be better. I mean, I've done okay today because I'm rounding off now, and it's only just gone over 2 hours. So I'm gonna actually just get rid of you two. Crazy. So what you have in yeah, and what I'm gonna do as well, I feel like maybe I'll do this separately. I will run through some basic Figma setup, basically, and just kind of, yeah, because I kind of probably should have done that earlier on in this session, is just to show you how you can sort of set up a very basic kind of file to have some designs on there. But maybe we can do that either next time, or I can do it in a separate video and link to that. But essentially what you have here, so we're in design view right now, so that's everything that we're creating in all these different pages. It's all happening in this design view, but you've actually got a couple of different views. So you've got prototype and you've got inspect. So inspect is kind of it's really cool. It's like it gives you some code that you can go and take off to, like, whether you're building whether it's even just like HTML and CSS, or whether you're using like React or style components, whatever you're using, it gives you some CSS that you can take away. You can sort of copy and paste this in places. It gives you some code that you can use for like iOS, Android, really helpful stuff. And then you also have obviously all the text styles and all that kind of stuff still down the side here. But let's say you want to click on something, you want to find out a bit about the properties. It gives you all of these properties. You've got text there, you've got the content. Look at that, it shows you the font, the weight, the style, the size, the line height, the alignment, and then down the bottom here it shows you again, you've got the CSS properties, you've got the iOS kind of styling, and Android as well. And so if you wanted to, you could just kind of copy and paste this stuff, and you can go and drag and drop things and do that kind of thing, which is helpful. It's quite cool. It's not the way I kind of work with it, but it's there. And if there's anything that you need to like double check or check over in terms of widths and stuff, obviously you've got this view, but sometimes it's just a bit easier just to see things in a bit more of a familiar visual style in terms of CSS, so you can see that clearly. So that's cool. But right now we're going to be concerned with the prototype space. So now I've got that activated. If I click off things, you can see all the wires now. And so what I just created already, yes, I didn't show you, this is the menu. So obviously I'm probably going to be changing this, but this is just showing you the menu. So if I close down that prototype, and if I hit play, it's going to start the prototype for this. Right, so what's cool is that if I now hit this, so we saw here this arrow, if you follow this arrow down, it goes to this page, right? And some of you may already know, or have some experience with prototyping, but if I click that, we get to that page. If I click the arrow, I send an arrow back to this page. And what's nice is that I did the same thing with the dark mode. So this icon goes to this page, and then on this page we have something that links to that page. We've got something that links back to the dark page. And so what we have created is this nice loop where we can go dark mode, light mode, dark mode, and go to the dark mode menu, go back to dark mode, light mode, the light mode menu, and then back to the home page. But what I want to show you specifically just before we close off is like something even more subtle, which is really nice, and I really like this feature. So what I'm going to do for this is just to go back to the design. It'll be easier to do it here. And let me just actually grab both of these. And what I want to do is duplicate them. Just bring them up there. Right. And I just want to name them accordingly so I know what they are. I'm going to move this up here. So I'm going to say dark, hover, and be lazy. Okay. So we know that they are the hover ones. And then what we can do, so this is nice and this is really cool because the variants come back into play here. So what we can do is we can change this from primary to secondary. Or no, sorry, my bad. What's better still, let's keep this, let's keep this all, I can't remember the word I was going to say. I wanted to say semantic, but I don't think that was the right word. But yeah, no, let's keep it all valid and let's make sure that we're not trying to skip things because I don't need to make it secondary. I need to change the state. So like I said, I created these different variants and they have different properties. And this is the power of the variants. Obviously, I showed you the size and I showed you the different types. But what I didn't show you was the state. So we can activate our hover state. And of course, yes, it's going to go back to the default, but we can just change this. You can put get in touch again. And then we can, of course, change our color. If we really wanted to go into depth with this, we could, have some different styles depending on the themes, but I just thought that it wasn't necessary. It's not too much work to go and just change it there. So now we've got a hover state for this button and we're going to go and do the same thing for this guy as well. So I've just gone a bit too far in there, I think. Have I? Possibly. Oh, I realised what's happened actually. So here we're not actually utilising the proper button. So what I'm going to do is just do that and drag that into there. And I'm going to put this in there. And then what I'm going to do is just change that colour to being that default. There we go, that's better. And then we can essentially just do the same thing. Yeah, let's just do the same thing with this one. I was going to show you how we can do the same thing, but we've already done that. So I would just delete that button, take this guy, duplicate him, and then put him in the right place wherever he is or she is. And let's change that color to, again, nope, yep, nope, yes. Okay, so now here's where this gets really cool. So if we go back to the prototype, we can see all these crazy wires. Okay, we don't want this. Oh no, actually, hold on. No, that's fine. Actually, we can still have that. So this is nice. It actually kind of remembers if you duplicate something, it remembers where certain things are going. Sometimes it's not so helpful, so sometimes you do need to change that. But what's really nice is that we can do something cool here. So if I click on this button in particular, I can create this arrow to this page, right? And then what you do is that you have these interaction details, so you can decide what you want to happen based on the event. So you've got a bunch of different events. Obviously you've got none, so that obviously does nothing. You've got on tap, so maybe when you click. You've got on drag, so when you drag it, it does something. You've got while hovering, which is the one that we're going to be doing. You've got while pressing, key gamepad, I'm not sure what that is. You've got mouse enter, mouse leave, touch down, touch up. So there's quite a lot of different kind of interactions that we can deal with here, which is really nice. So it accounts for a lot of different use cases. But right now we're just concerned with hovering. So we're going to say while hovering, navigate to this page essentially, and we'll just leave it to be instant for now. And then we can do the same exact thing with this one too. So we can just do the same thing. We can do while hovering, navigate to there. So let's go and have a look at our mock-up now. And now, as you can see, you might have just seen it there. Look at that. We've created like a nice hover state. And if you make it dark, we now get this nice thing going on here. So okay, that's cool. So sorry, I'm just checking the chat. Oh, we've had a couple of people in here. That's cool. So yeah, you've got this like nice hover state now that we've activated just by doing a couple of things with the interactions. And so what's even better about this is that we can now start to obviously this looks a bit messy. We can make this cleaner, but right now I'm just trying to show you something. But usually you know, it's not too bad because you're usually concerned with one thing at a time. But obviously as this starts to grow in complexity, we'll have to think more about how we can keep this from being, you know, too messy. But what's nice is that I'm not sure if these are new, but I feel like I haven't seen these before. But they've got like what the actual state is if you like click on the thing. I don't know if it has it for everything, but it's got it for the hover. Maybe there's a way to activate it. I don't know, to be honest. But what's nice about this is that you can now start to change these transitions. So let's actually say that, you know, we want it to dissolve. And now what we can actually do is we can add some easing. So I'm just going to leave it on that default easing. I'm going to do the same thing here, dissolve. And now let's have a look at the difference. And the nice thing is that this live prototype, it you don't have to close it and start it up again. It just like auto refreshes, if I can say that. So you can see there's a slight delay now, which is very nice. You know, we can make this longer if we want. So let's just kind of double that. And we'll just do it for that one so we can see. So this is just for the light mode. So it's a lot more of a gradual feel, which I personally don't like. That's a bit too long for me. But again, like this is another thing that we would want to think about in terms of, you know, I mentioned before about design tokens. So next time I'm going to be, or between now and the next stream, I'm going to be thinking about and the animation side of things in terms of the tokens, and thinking about different durations and actually having some stored values for those, so that we'll have like, you know, a single source of truth as far as our like animations and transitions go, so that when it gets into coding, we're not thinking about, oh, you know, am I going to do this or do that? That sort of thinking has been done beforehand, and that's the general idea behind creating these design tokens and doing some thinking around that. So anyway, I'm going to kind of close off now because we've gone over time, but I thought I was just going to show you this nice little prototype here of something cool you can do. And this is obviously just one use case. There's, you know, many different things that you can do with this. But yeah, I mean, I feel like it was a slightly messy structure, but we kind of got there in the end. Yeah, you know, we looked over the different parts of the design file and just kind of gave you a bit of an idea as to how I'm working with things. As we go throughout the project, hopefully things will become a bit clearer, and I'll try to be a bit clearer on how I'm working on things, and hopefully maybe show a bit more about how I'm working with Figma's features and just showing you what they can do. But yeah, as I said, you know, obviously I want to push on, and this isn't, you know, Figma specific. So if anyone's interested in learning a bit more about Figma, then do hit me up and let me know, and I'll for sure yeah, create some more content, probably separately around how I'm working with Figma. But yeah, that's kind of it from me today. So in terms of yeah, things to kind of get done for next time, I'm going to be looking at some more design stuff, as I said. I'm hoping to potentially set up like a Discord server. I might not get that done by tomorrow's stream. You know, it might be at some point during the week, but I just want to kind of open up that space as well, for anyone that's interested and maybe wants to, you know, learn. Well, I suppose it's a good centralized place to find out about when I'm doing the next stream, or the resources folders. Just I'll have all the links in there, that kind of thing. So if anyone is interested, there'll be that space, and there'll also just be a space just to chat with me, and for more of like a direct communication, for feedback, for questions. So I'm going to be setting that up at some point as well. But yeah, catch me tomorrow. Let's say 10 a.m. UK time. I'll be going live, setting up my repo, and we'll be looking at some of the tooling. ESLint Prettier. We'll be looking at setting up Chakra and setting up the theme, and just kind of getting started with bringing design tokens and stuff, and then we can kind of go from there. And then later on in the week, we'll actually get into working with Storybook. So should be a fun time. But yeah, that's kind of it from me. Cool. Great. Thanks, guys, and take care. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.